right, and welcome everybody. This is Pastor Sherman, and this is Christ&Culture. I want to welcome you all to the broadcast. Hope everybody's doing really well today, and that it's a midweek, man, or it's early part of the week here. Hopefully everybody's doing really well. This has been a crazy, crazy week, as always, and it seems to me like the crazier it gets, the more the more we got to pray. We got to press in. And press in and press in because it just gets crazier and crazier. Want to welcome you all to the broadcast once again. And if you are watching us on our YouTube channel, I'm going to jump over there really quick right now to get to our YouTube channel. And if you are you're watching us on our YouTube channel, encourage you, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel first and foremost. Go ahead and subscribe to that. Get in on the conversation. And if you'd like to, go ahead and send us an email. Send us an email at christandcultureshow@gmail.com. It's christandcultureshow@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We're in season 3 now, you guys. Can you believe that? Season 3. And what would a Christ and Culture show be without my partner in crime, Mr. Tommy, Pastor Tommy Allums? Tommy, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Pastor Sherman?
Good. And can you hear me well now?
I can.
Oh, good. Okay, because we were having some problems, some technical difficulties earlier. And hopefully everything's going really well. So first and foremost, Pastor Tommy, how things been going with you?
Good. Been staying busy. Ministry is going well, man. A lot of young people are answering the call and stepping up, and it's been very encouraging. Very
cool. I'll tell you, I don't know if people realize that we're on the front lines, right? And so if we can get more people out there into the battle, I'll tell you, the better off it is all the time, isn't it? So I'm very excited about that. Well, very cool. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, a lot of stuff going on online. A lot of things going on in the culture. Let's just get going. Let's get going on this thing. Let's see what God's going to do. There was this is probably one of the biggest stories that we've probably seen happen in many moons, is a referral that came from DNI Tulsi Gabbard, and Tulsi Gabbard she's the director of national intelligence, and she's been doing some snooping around. As far as where the body's buried at, that kind of stuff. And so she just, I don't know if you remember this, but remember before she became the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, they put her on a watch list, and they were saying, hey, she's a kook and she's a nut. And President Trump said, you know what, that's the kind of person we want working for us. we want somebody that the left doesn't like. And so as a result of that, she's given access to national intelligence, and she found something very interesting. And here's what she found. She found out that in the waning days of the Obama administration, that there was an intelligence briefing that came to the desk of the president. President Obama was still the president. This is in 2015, 2016. And there was an intelligence briefing that came to him that was talking about the Russia collusion, because many times we hear about Russia collusion. Many of you heard about this throughout the first year of the Trump administration. Russia. It was all about Russia. Well, men like Clapper, Brennan, all these guys came up to her and they said, well, you know what, President, based upon our findings, there really wasn't much to this. These floating ideas that there was some kind of Russian collusion. And President Obama heard about this, and I'm giving you the synopsis on this, guys. But President Obama heard this, this report, and he says, well, that's wonderful. Come back in a couple of days and give me a different one with a different narrative. And the different narrative was basically that, yes, there was Russia collusion. Yes, there was enough for them to open an investigation upon the Trump administration, and these guys, Brennan, Clapper, the guy what's the guy's name? Comey, the guy who was the head of the FBI. They said, well, okay, and they came back 100 days later, or a couple of days later, and this was during the time that Obama was still in office, and they gave him back a report that said that there was some kind of collusion between Trump and the Russians to overturn or to affect the election of 2016, which opened up this whole narrative about Russia, Russia, Russia. There's so much more of this, guys. So here's the deal. This was over the weekend, guys. So there was so much going over the weekend. So Tulsi Gabbard says, guess what? I've got this information, bringing it forward, and everybody goes, oh my gosh, this is going to be crazy. And now she has actually issued a referral for criminal charges against Barack Hussein Obama and his administration. I'm going to read this very quickly because I've gone over a lot of this stuff for you. Department of Justice announced that it's received documents by DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, pertaining to a criminal referral from Obama-era officials who manufactured, that's what I told you, the narrative that Russia attempted to collude with President Donald Trump in the 2016 election. Gabbard's report alleged that Obama administration officials participated in a treasonous conspiracy during the 2016 election cycle by manipulating and withholding intelligence to craft a narrative that Russia was interfering in the U.S. presidential election to undermine President Trump. Whew. Okay, all that said, Pastor Tommy, this is probably, this has been on all week long. It has been on since Friday. If you try to find it in the mainstream media, you probably didn't hear it. You didn't hear anything about it. But it is, Tulsi Gabbard is pushing this big time. Pastor Tommy, when you heard about this, your thoughts?
My thoughts? I have several thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
One is nothing ever happens to anybody except for Donald Trump. I mean, as far as getting, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But we still have a lot of Democrats that are judges and are in high places, and they are literally holding up the process of what Trump is trying to do. They're not able to stop him, so to say, but they're definitely causing some slowdown. So I don't really think anything is going to come about of it. It is news and it is newsworthy, and so people are going to tune in. I would just caution believers at this point. There's going to be a lot more, and I sense this in the spirit. There's going to be a lot more news that is attention grabbing, like, ooh, like, whoa, what's going to happen now? And we just have to be careful that we're not sucked into it. And this is one of those things that could potentially pan out like it probably should pan out.
Mm-hmm.
But I just really don't think that anything is going to come of it. I mean, besides President Trump, when's the last time you really seen anyone this high caliber get in any kind of trouble?
The only time I've seen anybody get in trouble is President Trump. That's the only person.
And
right?
Nixon. That's
Nixon. Everybody in President Trump's sphere of orbit. I remember, the first guy when President Trump got into office, and he was a general, and he was a part of his Flynn.
General Flynn. Yeah.
He was the first one, I'll tell you, and everybody who was associated with Donald Trump either went to jail or lost their homes or something nefarious happened. They were lucky it wasn't Hillary Clinton who was after him. Because, Hillary
ended up dead.
Yeah, Hillary was a killer, and I don't think we would ever, wish that on anybody. So I'm so glad nothing happened with Hillary. And we've got a story about her in just a second here too, but here's the thing I think that is so that I don't think anybody is thinking about. Yes, we probably are. Nobody's probably surprised that that this has happened as a result, and that or where it came from. Nobody's surprised that it came from Obama. Nobody's surprised that it came from the left. I'm not really surprised about any of this stuff, to tell you the truth. But, and yes, I believe in justice, and I believe the Word talks about justice, and it speaks about this, and yet the Word also says to be, to be shrewd, that we need to start thinking about this, because if you want to get the left animated, okay, if you want to get them excited about something, guess what you need to go after? One of two things, okay? You either go after abortion, because that's their baby. They love to kill babies, or you go after Obama. Okay, if you want to get them excited about and coming to vote, because this is coming up to midterms, okay? Right now, the approval for the Democrat Party is like 17%. I mean, it's like low. I mean, I think dog catchers have got more, credibility than the Democrat Party. And yes, they know that Obama was a scoundrel. Yes, they know that Hillary's Obama. But it's like, or a scoundrel. But it's like you come into somebody's house and tell them that your wife's ugly, right? And you're going, wait a minute. That's my wife. You're talking about my wife now, right? Okay. And so they understand. Most Democrats understand that they've got a really, they're scoundrels, but they don't want you messing with their homie. They don't want you messing with their guy. And I think that Republicans, that the DOJ needs to be very, very shrewd about this. What are you going to do about this? I mean, so what do you think that they could do other than prosecuting Barack Obama, Clapper, Comey, all these guys, other than prosecuting them, what, and dragging this out for the next couple of years, animating the left, what else could they do?
That's a good question. I don't really know how to answer that.
Yeah, and I think that's something they really need to think about, because vengeance. The Lord says, "Vengeance is mine," saith the Lord. Right? He says, "Give me room for this. Yeah. You don't worry about this, kids. You let me take care of this." Okay, but we are right. But we're like going, "No, I don't care. I'm getting mine. I'm getting my vengeance." Right? I listened to some of the talking heads over the weekend, and they're like all jumping up and down. Oh, we got Obama. We got him. I go, guys. I get it. I get it. Okay? People lost their homes. Some of them lost their freedom. Okay, I get it. But where's God in this whole thing? God.
Right? Yeah. That's and that's what I meant earlier when I said we as Christians, believers, need to make sure that we're not distracted by this, because if we invest too much energy and thought and what should be done and voicing our opinion, we have to be careful that we don't ruin our own heart. And I've seen God take vengeance out on people because of me, only because I chose to stay quiet. I chose to keep my heart pure. Lord God, whatever you want to do, I'm not going to go after. I'm not going to say anything bad about it. I'm just leaving it in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the vengeance of the Lord multiple times. So that's kind of my thought process behind everything that I approach. And you're right. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's very important.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I kept thinking, I'm going, man, guys, there's going to be problems with this. This could go sideways in a minute. I mean, it really could go very sideways, very quickly, and God's saying, hey, so that's what you get. That's what you get. You should have asked me. You should have asked me. I'm just here. I'm just God. If you knuckleheads would just ask me every once in a while, I'll give you the way to get through this whole thing. But you do what you got to do, right? Or listen to these talking heads, because a lot of the people that are saying anything about this, they are basically pundits on TV. Go get them. You go get them. It's the only reason why I don't. And I love I watch some of these shows, And I mean, I get it. You want somebody on your TV show. That's really
Yep.
pretty much it. And it's part of your
Mhm.
news cycle. That's what it is. It's all news cycle, right? Get more
Mhm.
controversy, yes,
Yep.
Um, but we as Christians we're on a whole different plane, man. We're in a whole different thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there was another report, and this one is about Hillary Clinton because you happen to invoke her name. Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton, newly declassified DOJ watchdog report on Hillary Clinton's private server. Many of you guys remember she had a private server in her bathroom, I believe, in her house in Chappaqua. Chappaqua. That's my big word for the week. Reveals Barack Obama's email was hacked. And so this report, and this one's by who sent this? Gateway Pundit got this story out here, and they said that she had a private server, and that Comey basically said, "Hey, guess what? Yeah, she might have had this private server. She might have bleach bit her phone, all this other stuff, but it's not enough to convict her on." Well, these watchdog groups just found out, oh, God, she had a lot of stuff. She had private this, she had secret this, thumb drives containing sensitive data tied to the State Department, Congress, even President Obama himself. All this stuff was seized. All this information was seized and hidden away in these, dark closets. And these people are saying, guys, guess what? She was way out of her league. She was the Secretary of State. She wasn't the President of the United States. She could not have this Secret Service stuff, or excuse me, this top secret stuff in her closet on a server in her home, in her private home. And that maybe James Comey, and these guys went way too far. Maybe they went way too far by saying, hey, we're not going to prosecute her. As a matter of fact, maybe they did it because they knew that she needed to get into office. Maybe that's why she did it. Your thoughts on this?
That's it. Power, that much power leads to greed, and that's what we're seeing. Even when that story broke a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
everybody pretty much knew that there was more to the story than what was being told.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing on the thumb drive. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing. And now here, what 10 years later, yep, there was something on there.
Definitely
But
something there.
y- you know, um, it's not like you said earlier. It's not a surprise. She wanted to be president, and she started way back then. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like it was time to put your name in the hat to run for office. She was already running for office way back then when she was serving as Secretary of State.
Yeah, yeah, and the Bible is real clear, and we've talked about this before, but that it says, choose for yourself leaders. It talks to the believers, and it says, choose for yourself leaders who have these qualifications, right? And
Yep.
I blame this all on us. I really do. Not you and I personally, right? But
Yep.
those people who decided they're going to go into the voting booth and to vote for people, voting for their leaders, and they knew doggone well, right? They knew that these people that they're voting into office are not Christians. They are not upstanding people. They're not. They don't check off any of these things, right? They don't, right? And
Yep.
yet they vote for them anyways. And
Yep.
and so I think this is an indictment, maybe of the voting public, maybe because half Christians are all probably the same way. Not all Christians are Bible believing, voting folks. Some of them don't vote. Some of them vote for the wrong
Yep.
people. Whatever their issues are, okay. But at least
Yep.
half of those people are voting for people who should not be in office. And
Mhm.
am I wrong in this? Is that who
No,
we should be
no,
talking about?
you're absolutely right, and it's actually reflective of the church because you
Mm-hmm.
think of all these pastors that aren't really called. They just see an opportunity.
Hmm.
Hey, I want to be a preacher. Give me a Rolls Royce, and I'm gonna, take 5 offerings every Sunday, and I've been to those churches. I've
Yeah.
been to those churches, and you know that these people aren't called, but you show up every single week
Hmm.
with your tithes and offerings, and then when something happens, then, oh, I can't believe our pastor would do such a thing. It's the same thing that's happening in the church.
Yeah, yeah, and this is I'm doing a deep dive into our founding fathers and deep dive into what they believed and everything else. And if our founding fathers came back today and they saw what we've allowed this country to become, they would just go. They would walk up to individuals, slapping them in the face, going, "I cannot believe you allowed this nation to become like this." Um, and people would go, but no, but nothing. We died so that this country could be, this beacon of light. We died for this. We died for freedom. We died for
Yeah.
liberty. And now we find ourselves, potentially the guy who's going to be the next mayor of New York is a Muslim. He believes in killing all the Jews. Really? In America? Oh my gosh. This is like crazy, man. Um, I don't know. Maybe. This story about Hillary Clinton, though, is just ridiculous. Though that these guys would that James Comey, that these guys would actually go, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. Nobody will see this stuff. And I think it goes back to the same thing with Tulsi Gabbard, that all of these files, all these things that they found, that she found, were tucked away. They were marked top secret, classified documents, and that they didn't believe anybody would ever see this stuff. As a matter of fact, they didn't believe Donald Trump would get into office.
No, they didn't, and that's obvious. They started panicking last June or last July
And why do
when
you
they
think they
plotted
started
that,
panicking?
because they knew. But why didn't they destroy it? That's so, I don't know.
You can't destroy this stuff. Now you're gonna really get in trouble. You just hope nobody ever finds it, right? You know, you put it on a thumb drive and you stick it away in a corner and hope nobody is smart enough to go looking. And they never realized that people have been waiting, because it didn't happen during the first Trump administration, right? Nobody started looking for any of this stuff. I saw a story where they were somebody was connecting the dots about how they believed, why they did not want Trump to get into office, and this wicked web that had been manifesting itself for decades and decades of the deep state, and these people who are in public office, who are generationally getting their feet entwined in the federal government, knowing that if they just keep power, that they can keep sucking money out of the system, uh, until Donald Trump came along, and they went,
Yeah.
"Oh shoot, who's this guy? He's an outsider, right? He's an outsider.
Yeah.
He doesn't play ball with us. As a matter of fact, we don't know who he plays ball with at all." And that's why they went after him early. They went after him early and hard. And I think because we've never seen this kind of opposition against a single person, right? Why do you think that is?
And for the reasons you just said. He's not playing ball with them. Wait, you're not playing ball with us? What do you mean? It's that gang mentality. Hey, you either, with us on our block, or you from the other hood, and we coming after you. Just because
Yeah,
you from the other hood and you won't play with us. It's the
yeah.
same mentality.
Isn't that crazy? As a matter of fact, there were some people that, and I think we talked about this last week. They were people who were fired by the administration. They worked for USAID. Remember that story we talked about USAID a
Yeah.
little while back, and USAID was just a big tranche of money that was just too good to be true. It's like, you guys left all this money here, and nobody, and you're giving me a credit card? Oh my gosh, right? This was too good to be true. Give me a big old fat credit card, and I don't even have to tell you what I'm spending it on. You mean you can give me $20 billion, and I don't even have to tell you who it's going to? Ha!
That's crazy.
Right? So these women worked for USAID, and then they were told, you're fired. And they said, what do you mean we're fired? It's like you went to one of those other old Southern churches, sisters down there, and they're going, what do you mean? Who do you think you are? This is my house, right? And they publicly came out and said, we are the deep state. We are not going anyplace. They told him, we are the deep state. Yes, we are real, and we ain't going no place. You'd have been better off just leaving us there and not saying nothing to us, right? And they said, we're going to be worse than you would ever imagine. And that's bold, man. I mean, what does that tell you?
That is bold.
Pastor Tommy, what does that tell you about the condition of the spiritual condition of our federal government and the physical and the spiritual condition of our government?
Well, it's a reflective of the people, literally, because we've allowed it for so long. We've allowed it for so long, and so they're to the place now where they're bold. Satan is bold right now, and his followers are going to be bold because the church has not stood up. The church has not said anything. The church has not done anything about it. And so, yeah, they're bold. That's just showing how much more now we need to step up, us who know what's going on and recognize what's going on. Because if we don't, here's the problem. If we do not, what kind of example would we leave to those behind us?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of like somebody walks into your house and they go, hey, what's going on? What you got in the refrigerator? and you don't say anything to them. Like, get out of my house. And, this, right, get out of my house. What are you doing? You don't even say nothing to them. And they go, so they say, oh, I'll be back. I'll be back. And they come back the next week and they got two more friends. And they go, oh, yeah, I thought I'd bring some of my friends with me. This is how bold it gets. There was a story here. And I want to encourage you folks, if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, you're watching us, you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and write to us. Write to us at Christ&Culture Show at gmail.com. It's Christ&Culture Show at gmail.com. And love to hear from you. And really, we'd love to hear your opinion on some of the stuff that's been going on, because this is getting crazy. There was a story about these lawmakers trying to put together a bill talking about the Hyde Amendment. So the Hyde Amendment, for a lot of folks who don't understand or didn't know what the Hyde Amendment was, the Hyde Amendment basically says that you cannot use federal money to do abortions. Okay, so you can use foreign money to pay for your car. you pay for it, do whatever you want with it, but we will not, as a country, allow you to use that money for to do for abortions. And we do that internally, as a country, and our money cannot be used in foreign countries that way too. So this is interesting. Ayanna Pressley, Tammy Duckworth, they introduced legislation to ensure that people who received health care or insurance through the federal government, that money would cover abortions. And they shared this bill with the reporting outfit that came across this. And they said the Equal Access to Abortion Coverage in Health Insurance, or EACH, the EACH Act would repeal the Hyde Amendment, which since 1976 has barred federal funding from being used to pay for abortions, except for in rare circumstances like rape, incest, or when the female's life is in danger. And they said, aside from Medicaid, the ban also means federal employees and their dependents, military service members, Native Americans and Indigenous people, Peace Corps volunteers, everybody, okay? Immigrants, people in federal prisons, low-income residents in Washington, D.C., are prohibited from having insurance cover abortions, okay? And so here's the deal. This drives me crazy. that you've got this group of women who are saying, you know what, we don't like that. We don't like the fact that we can't have abortions for our people, for anybody and everybody who wants to have an abortion. So they're trying to introduce legislation that will reverse the Hyde Amendment and ensure that people can get abortions. Your thoughts on that, Pastor Tommy?
My thoughts is your body, your money. You make that choice to do what you want with your body. You pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put that on us, right? Who are putting into the pot, and you're already bringing blood upon this nation. First of all,
Mm-hmm.
and then now you want to include all of our money so that we can all be tied to that. I mean, no, your choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your
Sure.
body, your money. Period.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think, I don't, you know, we as Christians don't want anybody having abortions, right? We think it's an abomination. It is what the word says, but we cannot tell you what to do with your body. Okay, we can encourage you, we can, reach out to you, do all that other good stuff, but we ultimately, in the end, cannot be. We're not your Jesus, right? We
Right.
hope we're right, but if this is crazy. These are, once again, I think it comes back to, are these Ayanna Presley and this other lady, what do their constituents say? Are their constituents saying, yes, go ahead and push for this, or are they just coming out on their own and said, oh no, I think we just want to introduce a bill? Can you imagine people? I can't imagine. I don't know where Ayanna Presley's from. Where's she from? Um, where is Ayanna Presley from? She's got to be in the Midwest someplace. Um, but let me see where she's at. But I can't imagine that the people in her district are saying, yes, you know what? We've been thinking this over, and we kind of like the idea of. She's from Massachusetts. I can't imagine her people saying, well, I could in Massachusetts, they might do it. That they would say, yes, this is what we want. As a matter of fact, I would think that people would, a plurality of people would say, no, we don't want this. So this is getting kind of crazy. This is a crazy time in our nation's history where you can't even, where we should probably be thinking more and more about this. There was an article, Pastor Tommy, and the article was talking about, and this was they were giving putting their finger up and giving a poll on the faithful. What is faith like in America? Where are we at as a country? Is faith on the rise? Is faith on the decline? And so I'll ask you first. What do you think it is? Do you think it's rising? Do you think it's falling? Do you think it's staying stagnant? What do you think?
You know, I'm having um I'm kind of ambiguous, and the reason why is because, like what I said at the beginning, we're seeing young people really step up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we're also seeing people just walk away from God. We're seeing people, making these choices to walk away from God. But you see this new generation that is really getting captivated by the love of God, and they're turning their life over to Christ. And so I really don't know um, how to view that. It's like in with the new, out with the old. Um,
Yeah.
I, yeah, I don't know how to
Yeah.
answer that.
Yeah. And so based upon what these guys say, based upon this reporting on that, they say that religious values are decreasing in America. Decreasing in America. And I started thinking about this. They say not everybody agrees. They were talking to a couple of pastors, and like yourself, they've seen. I think it's spotty. Depends on where you're
Hmm.
at around the nation. Depends on. But I would say this, that and I thought about this over the last couple of weeks, and they were talking about when religion, quote unquote religion, it kind of did this over the years in America, right? kind of did this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1962, they stopped allowing there to be a Bible in your classroom, and teachers could not initiate prayer in the classroom. And I think what you're seeing right now over the last 60 years, because I know I was born in 61, okay, and so if you were born prior to that, you had a Bible on your desk in school. That's just the way it was. There was a semblance of religiosity in America. But if you were raised after that and you didn't go to a private school, you didn't go to parochial school, Catholic schools. I went to Catholic school as a young man. You weren't exposed to Christianity. Matter of fact, unless you got it on that was still on TV in those days, and it really was, you just did not. You just weren't exposed to it. So, what do you think happens after 60 years of a nation who did not have religion square in your face? What do you think the outcome would be?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a decline, and overall speaking, yes, there is a decline, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
there's a sliver of hope of revival that's happening in the young
Mm-hmm.
people, and that's very encouraging.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that even speaks to what the church. Um, so, what does the word say? It says that my strength is made more, in your weakness. My strength is
Weakness,
made more
perfect, yeah.
evident, right? It's made perfect in
Yeah.
your weakness, right?
Hmm.
As a
Hmm.
nation gets weaker and weaker now. So it'd be different if it was if we were not a nation that was founded upon biblical principles. We were just some place out in the middle of the Pacific or something like that. But we were a nation founded upon the Bible. And I don't think God is going to say, no, you guys are just going to fade off into the the history, the wilds of history. I believe God has got a place for America, and
Yep.
don't you? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I do. This is why I continually repeat that this moment of reprieve right now that we have is time for the church to step up, to really pray, connect with God so that we can make these changes, so that we can prepare for the younger generation to be to be discipled,
Mm-hmm.
and get America back on track. Because if we miss this, I think
Mm.
it will get to the place where, hey, I'm taking my hands off. He did it to Israel several
Yeah.
times in Scripture. And I think this is our wake up call, that if we answer, all good. If we don't answer, all bad.
Yeah, I think you're right. I really do too. Um, this has been a been one of those interesting weeks. A lot of crazy stuff has happened all this week. One of those crazy things um, is Stephen Colbert. Remember Stephen Colbert? He's a yeah. I don't know what I should even say about this guy. But what happened to Stephen Colbert is he's a late night talk show guy. He came in, does the same sort of thing like Johnny Carson used to do, except for he's not funny. And so Stephen Colbert comes on, and at least during the Trump era, he has spent a lot of his time attacking the president, attacking Christianity, attacking the whole conservative movement. Well, he got canceled. So the people at CBS said, "You're done." They found out that they were spending way too much money on this guy. He's got 100. That show. Guess how much that show costs to produce a year? I'll give you
Were you about to say 100 million?
$100 million. $100 million, and they're paying him $20 million of it per year. $20 million this guy makes. And so they were short by $40 million every year. And I'm wondering, after the first year, I think they would probably go, maybe not. Maybe we should cancel this show. But they let it go on and on and on. Well, they finally made a business decision, and they said, okay, we're done. Well, Stephen Colbert is not very happy about this, and neither are the left. The left, as a matter of fact, are saying that it's Trump's fault when it's pretty much a business decision, guys.
Of course.
I mean, this is a business decision.
Everything Trump's fault.
Well,
The floods were Trump's fault. Come on.
floods are Trump. He spoke, and the flood waters just rose. And yes, well, many of us fondly remember the days when late night talk show hosts like Johnny Carson, Jay Leno came into living rooms every night. This is how the article reads, and it says, with one goal in mind, to entertain. And that's what they came here for. But once Donald Trump came into office, it seems like these comedy shows morphed into attacks on Donald Trump and 77 million Americans. And that's basically what it was. They said that Colbert shows was basically a cauldron of Democrats. You know, Adam Schiff, anybody and everybody who was on the left was on that show. But there were no Republicans. There's no conservatives on his show. I guess it would have been asking too much for him to do that. And so are you going to miss Stephen Colbert, because he's going to be gone May?
No, I won't. I've never watched him. I mean, I've seen him before, but what I've seen didn't make me watch him. I tell you, I grew up watching Johnny Carson and Jay Leno. Yeah. They were funny. I remember when Jay Leno was a guest on Johnny Carson repeatedly, and he began to take it over because he was funny. Yeah. And I don't remember any strong political viewpoints being mentioned on either of their shows growing up. And they had everybody on their shows. Everybody who was worth talking to on both sides, they were on. Yeah.
Yeah. Johnny Carson was a funny guy. He just made everything funny.
He was.
You know, he was what do they call it? Deprecating. So he would make fun of himself. He would make fun of everybody else, you know, maybe a little slip here. He'd slip something in or something like that. But he was just a very funny guy. But once these other guys got on, they just went nuts. It's like, oh my gosh, Jimmy Kimmel, even Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live, I watched Saturday Night Live with the original cast, and they had characters. You know, they had characters that they would make up, and they were and guess what? Even if you made a political character and you made him funny, nothing wrong with that, right? It's funny, right? It's, but they just got too serious about this stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, I think they forgot their first job was to be funny, right? And they just took it too far.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's just kind of the way it is. If you just joined us on the show, folks, I'm Pastor Sherman, this is Pastor Tommy, and this is Christ and Culture. And we want to invite you to be a part of the broadcast. Go ahead and, if you're watching us on YouTube, you're listening to us on Spotify, maybe you're listening to us on Apple Podcast, or the podcast goes out around the world, folks. I mean, around the world. Go ahead and write to us. Write to us at christandcultureshow@gmail.com. Let us know. Let us know that that you're enjoying what's going on. We try to come into your living rooms on a weekly basis, talk to you about what's going on in the culture and how Christ is impacting the culture, and how we believe that God still got his thumb on the pulse of America, and how we could still revive this nation if we as Christians just get maybe we get involved a little bit more in the process. So write to us at christandcultureshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Well, Hunter Biden was in the news this week. Oh my gosh! So we won't go through the whole thing with Hunter Biden. He's upset. That's a bitter brother. Hunter Biden came on. He was on this one show. He was on for 3 hours. Then he went on to another show. He was on there for another hour or something like that. And he's I don't know. He's like the deep state again. Okay, but he can't get back in. So Hunter Biden was the son of Joe Biden, and drug problems, women problems, kid problems, the whole thing. And but he got pardoned for all this stuff, so he's not going to have to worry about anything that's going on in his life. So he comes on to these talk shows, podcasts, and he gives his reasons for why he believes that Joe Biden not only lost the presidency, but he got couped. He got a soft coup and wasn't even able to run for office. And he basically says that his, blames part of it on Ambien, part of it on Nancy Pelosi, and most of it onto the disloyalty of the Democrat Party, that they just didn't back the old guy. So, So your thoughts about Hunter Biden, and do you think that he's given a good reason why Joe Biden actually lost the election?
Well, I think he's just telling on himself. So, you know, Hunter Biden is known for being a drug addict, and
Mm-hmm.
in this case, the apple may not have fallen far from the tree if he's blaming drugs for the reason that his dad didn't do well. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Ambien is a drug, man. People abuse it. Whatever else he might have been taking. Um, yeah, when you don't get your way, you're gonna blame everybody and everything except
Mm-hmm.
for what you did. So
Yeah.
yeah, he should be happy. He should be sitting in a corner somewhere quiet that he is pardoned and just live his life.
I think so. Yeah, because you know what? It's like, look, dude, you're you know what? But he has no life now. He doesn't have a law license anymore. He's not selling those paintings because he was selling those paintings for like $500,000 a piece. Nobody's buying those paintings now, right? I think he's trying to be like, and some have said that he has aspirations to run for office. I, you know what? Hey, if Zoran Mamdani could be the next in line, and he's never even had a job, right? At least Hunter was smart enough to skim money off of this place and skim money. At least he was that, right?
Yeah.
Um, but Zoran hasn't even had a job before, so I don't put it by the guy that he'd go to some city, USA, become mayor. You know, he's got guts. He's got what they call, he's got intestinal fortitude. He came on cussing like an old sailor, and people are going, I kind of like that. I kind of like that. So
No.
so so Hunter Biden comes into any town, USA, bunch of Christians are there. What do you suggest to these Christians that they do when Hunter Biden comes into their town? What do you think they should do?
Exactly what you said earlier. Hey, does he meet this criteria? Does he meet this criteria? Is he known for this? Is he known for that? Is he, and if he doesn't, well, next, move on. Let's swipe to the left, or and next.
Swipe right. Next. Next. I know. Yeah, he's scandalous, man. He's just simply scandalous. I heard people on TV going, I like him. I like him because he was just upset and he said what he wanted, and he was the indictment he said about Democrats. So let's go back to because we got a few more minutes left. His indictment, excuse me, of the Democrat Party interests me. He basically said the Democrat Party is defunct. They are, and he basically goes, oh, they can still come back, but right now they are a bunch of lily-livered, good for nothing, and he called them everything but a child of God. So, what what are your thoughts on the whole Democrat Party thing?
They need to get Jesus. They need Jesus because Jesus is the answer.
Yeah.
I, I don't know anything else to say because when you have corrupt minds, you can't see clearly. Everything you do is going to be corrupt, and if your mind is that way and you're stuck in your carnal mind and you can't see true good and understand that it is good, and you want that for yourself and for other people, yeah, there's no help at that point.
Yeah, I'm really looking at the things that have happened over the last 8 years, 10 years. It's been 8 years now. It's the things I look at, and I don't think that people can look at the Democrat Party and go, yeah, I think I could vote for those guys. Yeah, I think I trust them with America. As a matter of fact, I would say anybody who does vote for this. Now, so we've been given some really cool things, and we were talking about this last week, Pastor Tommy, is that the Internal Revenue basically says that we as pastors now can, from our pulpit, start looking at candidates, that kind of stuff, and endorsing from the pulpit and stuff like this, which really opens up a huge door. So here's the thing: I was going to ask, because I know a lot of pastors have, they're kind of skitterish about this, but this, I'm wondering when that became fashionable that pastors did not speak about politics from the pulpit. Because and I did a real cool deep dive into a group of pastors, and during the Revolutionary War they called them the Black Robe Regiment. Have you heard of this? The
No.
Black Robe Regiment. And basically what these guys were, these were pastors, and they basically would speak from the pulpit. They would talk about the Revolutionary War, they talk about your rights, freedoms, blah 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 blah, and they would also lead militias. A lot of the people, the Minutemen, came out of one church. They basically said it started in this one church. They were trained by this pastor, and they were all. And so they said that this Black Robe Regiment. They call them Black Robe because they wore a black robe, But under that robe was probably a uniform that they were going to, because they would go fighting at any moment. Well, that was a natural part of the way pastors were. Pastors had a real hand in the culture in those days. It's not as though they were running the government, but they definitely had an influence in the culture. So, anyways, I digress. When did it become fashionable for pastors to stop doing that? That's my question. Or when do you think that actually happened? Because I'd love to find out, because right now it's almost as though pastors are like going, well, because I've never seen it done, I'm not doing it. Well, the founding fathers referred to God as providence, right? That's how they referred to God. Pastors referred to God as providence too, but just because they don't say it today, does that mean that they didn't believe it then? Well, no, and so it's one of those hypotheticals that I believe that pastors need to get back in the business of influencing the culture from the pulpit, and really educating their people, because if they don't get the education from their pastors, guess where they're going to get it from?
Yeah, the news, the media, yep, the world.
Yeah. So I know I was so long-winded on that. so long-winded on that. I can't help myself. Let's. We got time for one more. Okay. So this was interesting article, and it's really about a lawmaker in. She's in Florida, and this lawmaker, interesting lady. She basically has. Now, when I first heard about her, I said to myself, "Well, she seems like she's a very conservative lady, that she's going to do such a great job." Her name is Maria Elvira Salazar, and she's out of Florida, and she's sponsoring an immigration legislation. It's called the Dignity Act. Okay, and when you first look at it, you go, "Hey, this sounds just like so nice." Okay, that you want to help people have dignified treatment by the law and everything else. But basically, what it is, it's a pathway to legalizing these folks that illegally came into this country, and you wouldn't mess with them for 7 years, basically. And that, but here's the problem with all of this stuff: these folks are going to have kids, and their kids, and by implication, by extension, they are going to become American citizens, and those folks will become. It's basically a pathway to citizenship for people who were illegally in this country. So my question is, this seems to me like just a backdoor way of getting into America. Am I right on this, Pastor Tommy?
Yeah, I do. While you were talking about that, I just remember my track days. If there was a false start, we had to go back to the starting line. I just think that if no matter who you are, how long you've been here, just go back and come in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with doing it the right way? What's wrong with doing it the legal way? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with starting over? Hey, I've been here a long time. I messed up. I know I shouldn't be here. I want to be here, so I'm gonna go back and
Hmm.
and do it the right way. Um, yeah, I don't get why people expect to do things illegal and expect to have rights doing it. I don't
Sure.
get that.
Yeah. And and we're a benevolent country. I mean, we really are. Okay? We're giving them a chance,
Yeah,
right? Instead of
yeah,
just putting them in jail, right? And saying,
yeah.
okay, you're in jail, and at least, and I love Christy Nome. The Christy Nome, who's the the Homeland Security lady, and she is so sweet about this. She goes, leave now, and you'll have a chance to come back. But if you don't, you will never get back. And her voice gets all very like that. You will, and make no bones about it, you will never get in this country. And you go,
Yeah,
shoot. And people are self-deporting. There are consequences to everything, right? There's a right and there's a
yeah,
wrong to everything, right? There are
yeah.
consequences. And if we as a nation do not, if we make special accommodations for people just because, and it's funny, we've had a relationship with Mexico for generations, okay? And there are people who come around the California area, and they've been doing this for generations and generations, where people have picked oranges, blah blah blah, and they're seasonal folks. They come over here and they work, they go back home, okay? And and because they are part of that economy down there, okay? I get it,
Mhm.
okay? But what Democrats are basically doing right now is they're saying we want to keep slavery in America. We want to keep,
Basically,
right. This is the reason why you had the Civil War, and I don't think if people really realize it, this is basically a civil war. This is basically slavery in 2025. They
hmm
just arrested some guy for he picked up some lady. They caught him on video where he had grabbed some lady on the street. She was a Chinese immigrant or a national, and he was holding her in like a shed for like 5 days. And come to find out that she was illegally here. She was working, as a in a restaurant, I believe. I don't think it was a sex thing at this
mm
time, but